An outside look, you can see both bell cranks in the left and the right. See how they're working? This is the bottom wing. This is the master wing. Now this is what's going to drive everything. And then I'm going to hook the upper wing through linkages to the lower wing, and the lower wing's going to run the upper wing, and that's how shit happens. Okay, so before I do move on with this, I did go ahead and put some fail-safes on top of the pins for the bell cranks. If I'm going to cover these up and not see them again, I want to make sure that anything does come loose, I'm going to be able to prevent it. So I just put a fail-safe on there, put a little bridge across the pin so it ain't going to come back out. It might come loose, but it won't come back out, so I won't lose total control. I think before I do cut the ailerons out, I'm going to do another final rig on the bottom here. I'm going to install the horns complete, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the top wing, put all this on the airplane and put the top wing on as well. I'm going to rig the two together the way they are right now, and then I'm going to cut them out and see if I can't maintain that. Just for the hell of it, I'm going to cut them all out at once. So I'm not going to cut anything out yet until I rig the upper, which should be fairly quick. I just thought I'd record this. This is the bottom side of the wing, bottom wing. I made the decision to commit myself to gluing my horns in on the bottom ailerons. Notice the aileron still is not cut out. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm committing myself to, that is a final rig. That is it. There ain't nothing else I can do about it. Well, there's some fine adjustments I can do. The horn right there, the hookup, I don't know if you can see it, but the clevis is threaded, so you do have some fine adjustment at the end, so you can adjust your aileron up and down. So there is a fine adjustment, but this is it. This is final commitment right here. They're drawing. All I have left to do to this wing is basically fine tune it, make it look pretty, cover it. In the process of covering it, I have to cut my ailerons out, finish the ailerons, and then incorporate the ailerons in the covering process, because the hinges on the ailerons are going to be fabric. So it's all going to tie in together, so I'm going to go ahead and load all this back into the airplane and tie in the top wing to it, commit myself on the top wing, and then I think I'll probably go to rigging the tail and then decide on what I'm going to do about an engine. I'll probably steal the engine off of the Trainer 60, I believe. 53, I got the outboard struts pretty much complete. I got the brass straps are complete and drilled. Blind nuts are in the struts on the back side. All I have left to do in order to finish that is to install the straps and the wings themselves, and I'm not going to do that until have them final tuned, sanded, because they're getting away with sanding. You can see this outside rig is complete. The lower wing is now rigged to the top wing. Both of these wings are rigged together. I still have to finish the other side. That was fairly simple. And now all I'm really down to is covering the wings. There isn't really anything else I have to do to these wings except for just covering them up, because I need the fabric to use for hinges so I can make their swings and their travels all good. So I'll probably start rigging the tail next. View of the compartment where the aileron servo sits now that the wings are installed. You're looking through the top, which means the canopy isn't on. Now you can see this thing sits dead center. Now you have 3 other servos to install, one for rudder, one for elevator, and one for throttle. And you're going to have to try and get those in there so they don't interfere with everybody, each other. I think these servos are probably going to be installed forward of this servo here. Try and keep the weight forward since it's a tail drag. So you can see pretty much with that upboard rig being done, you can pretty much see that the outboard rig being done. All I have to do left is cut ailerons out. Really isn't much left to do with the wings. Alright, here I am with both wings are rigged. I have not cut aileron out yet, but my rigs and my wings are complete. All I have to do is just cut them out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm making myself a servo tray for everything else on the inside. That's throttle, rudder, elevator. They're going to have to be upside down. I'm going to make one out of plywood. These are taken off from measurements of other plywood that I had. So this is I still got to cut out the holes, and then I'm gonna put some hardwood blocks in there to help support it upside down. But what I'm showing you right now is I got a reference bar inside I had installed before I take this all back apart and start working on the other servo tray. I put a reference bar across here. I just tack glued this in here, and this tells me where this servo sits. It's on top of that. It's a little bit above that servo, but it tells me where that servo sits. So when I have the wing out of there and I'm hooking up everything for the other servo tray, I'm going to be upside down, so I'm going to be totally disoriented. But that bar tells me as long as I run my linkages through this area, I won't have any kind of interference with this servo. So it gives me a window to play with, and I'll try and keep that window as high as I can. Then I'll probably just bust that bar back out of there. But so I gave myself a reference. My Trainer 60, you can't see it now. Well, yeah, you can. See this all that clearly. This is the inside of the Trainer 60. And when I had this thing with its wing on, this is such a close area that when I had this wing on, I could not tell what everything else was doing on the inside. I had no idea what was going on in the inside of this thing. Because the aileron servo sits right in here, and then all of the other servos sit in there as well. Get a lean in shot. Everything else sits in there right in that same spot. So the problem that I had, I couldn't tell what was going on, and things were hitting and clashing and clanging inside there when I had the wing on. I had to clear out the area back towards the wing. I had to clear this area out a little more because the aileron hookups were hitting. And then I was having an interference problem with my receiver, so I ended up cutting 3 inspection holes. You really can't get a good shot. It's kind of covered up. There's a little inspection hole here, here, and way back in the back. So I had 3 inspection holes I drilled in the fuselage so I could see what was going on while everything was working and moving, so I could alter my situation. Otherwise, once it's closed in there, you can't tell what's going on. So I cut some inspection holes in this one, and then it looks sloppy after the fact. You can kind of, if you know what you're looking for, you can kind of see them on the outside of the fuselage, but, you know, life's a bitch, I guess. Wings off. This is the bottom side, looking in, and you can see, now that you got the wing off, you cannot tell where that servo was. You have no idea. So here's my block. Right here is my spacer block, and as long as it stays in between these areas, I'm alright. So all this does is just give you a reference point. Oop, and that gives you a dent when you hit the side of the plate. So now we're going to mount the servo tray in here, which will run everything else. And looky what I found. Looky what I found when I was looking for Christmas ornaments. This is day 54 of the strike. Digging out Christmas ornaments. It's not even the end of November yet. Wanda's got the tree up downstairs. This here's the very first upper canopy for the Bonanza. Told you about this before. This is the one I trash. This is garbage. I use CA glue on it, and it just hazed the glass. And it just, his whole job. And you can look inside. It's just a plain out ugly mess. But this is my very first attempt. Very first attempt at gluing glass inside of a canopy. This is actually my very first canopy. I think I trashed this probably about 3-4 years back now. It's been hanging out ever since, because after I did it, it scared the hell out of me, and I kind of backed off, and then I start working on the Trainer 60. It's not a bad canopy if I want to use it like it is without glass, you know, if I wanted to just cover it up. But then again, it would just add weight due to the glass being in there, so I might as well just buy another piece, which you already seen. I already got a new piece, new glass. But thought I'd take a recording of this before I probably might end up trashing this, throwing it in the trash. We are on day 55. Today, we're going to go ahead and start rigging the tail. In order for me to rig the tail, I'm going to have to cover the tail. And it's best to cover the tail before the canopy anyway, because that way the canopy can slide right over the top of it. And then you got a nice even fair. All we have to do is do some body filling and it'll look real pretty. If you did the fabric after the fact, then you'd end up getting the fabric into the canopy and it's going to start looking sloppy. And that's what I learned from the Trainer 60. That's why I did the Trainer 60 this way. I'm going to do this in what we would call a dope and soak, or A&P school we called it wood dope and fab, or what you would call tree drugs and rugs. It's a fabric put on with dope, a nitrate dope, and then the color dopes are butyrate dopes. It tends to make the airplane a lot stronger, especially if you plan on trying to tear the wings off. I did my Trainer 60, the entire plane in this. I did the floats in this. Now I've kind of got an idea what to do weight-wise. I can thin it up a little bit more, and I'm getting to be experienced with it. This is an iron-on covering. It's not like true dope and soak where you'd use an actual fabric, a cotton, or I guess a razor black back, which you fiberglass. So this here you can actually put on with an iron if you do it in the sequence of SIG anyway. SIG, you can get a product called Stix It, which is actually a brush-on glue. Soaks into the wood, dries up in about 15 minutes. You can put your fabric on there, put it any way you want. It doesn't stick to the glue because the glue's dry. You can put it anywhere you want. Make sure you got exactly where you want it. Then you hit it with the iron and it heats the glue back up, which tacks to the cloth, which now you're ironing it down. But fabric will shrink. Coverall. This is a coverall. The fabric will shrink, so you're kind of got to keep on top of it. Don't just lay the iron on it. You want to tack it down and make sure you keep it taut because it will shrink. Doing it this way, other than you have the choice of putting the fabric If you do it the old-fashioned way, you put the fabric on the fuselage after you put some nitrate on there, and you nitrate through it and you soak it, and you end up with wrinkles and all hell breaks loose. You can put the cloth on with strictly nitrate dope, but to me, you're gonna lose control, and it's not worth it. A lot of people worry about the weight, and I'm like, weight only matters when it hits the ground as far as I'm concerned. But to give you another example, see-through coating that I used on my Gentle Lady. Now this is a see-through, transparent monocoat. This type of covering is a plastic film. You put it on with an iron, but the adhesive is already on the back side of the material. So you just kind of slide the fabric around where you want it, or the material, plastic film, wherever you want it, and then you hit it with a hot iron, and it heats up the adhesive on the back side of the material, and it tacks itself down to the balsa or to the fuselage, airframe, or whatever you're tacking it to. And again, this stuff, as soon as heat touches it, it starts shrinking. So you really gotta be under control. And this stuff is real fragile. If you use this, has no structural value whatsoever. All it really does is cover up the airframe. You can see right through this airframe. I mean, you're seeing right through it to the door. I could poke my finger right through that, no problem. It's meant to cover up the fuselage for aerodynamic reasons only, has very little structural value. So it works on gliders like this, or the trainer that's next to it here. This is a type of monocoat iron-on that came from the factory that way, but that's solid balsa, so you're really dependent on the balsa for strength. Another style of covering is the yellow that's on top of that green transparent. It's a solid yellow, but it's a different type of material. I use this on my 2x4. It goes on like a decal does, just like you pull the back off. It sticks on anywhere you want it to, just like a decal, and if you got it in the wrong place, you can peel it back off, put it back on. It's really excellent for pinstriping. But once you got it where you want it, you can hit it with the iron and it'll permanently bond itself, just like the monocoat will. Here's another example. This is my House of Balsa 2x4 glider wing. This was a fluorescent type of monocoat, wasn't a see-through style, and this acted totally different than the transparent. This here wanted to shrink faster. This was harder to control when you put it on than the transparent was. I like the transparent more. I believe the Gentle Lady fuselage, I did all that in the same colors as the wings. I did the fuselages in the yellow, and I believe that was the stick-on yellow. It's been such a long time, I can't remember. I think I built that glider a 3 years back. You can see that whole thing that's the fuselage of the Gentle Lady. So you got many different options. Many different options of covering an airplane. And as for dope and soak, I don't have the wing on it, but this is the very first one I dope and soaked. It came out to be a very beautiful airplane. It's very strong. It makes the wing extremely strong. I've tried to tear the wings off of this thing. Ran into the safety fence out there, drilled a couple of post holes into the wings once. Came out, very little damage for the impact. Extremely strong. So that's why we're going to go ahead and attempt the Skybolt in the same manner. We're going to go ahead and do it the dope and soak. So let's go ahead and start. All right, here we are, day 56. I am starting to cover the tail. This is how you make hinges. I've covered the bottom so far. You got to start in the bottom part of the wing. Bottom part of the wing, bottom part of anything. You always want to start in the bottom of any project and then have all your upper layers overlapping the other layers, if you know what I mean. But this is also true in hinging. See how I have a lot of cloth hanging down the bottom. This is iron on the bottom. I'm going to flip it over. Got a lot of overhang. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the elevator on top.